Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. External funding from EU is an important source of resources for municipalities all over Europe. It covers all corners and gives an extra push to important local initiatives. Umeå is a municipality in the very north of Sweden. They have developed a strong collaboration with their local business environment to develop an area of industrial symbiosis where one business waste is another business raw material. Circular economy working in the real world. The municipality is of course using EU funding to push the process forward. The Grant is always interested in showcasing practical examples of how funding can change things. So of course I had to invite them into the virtual podcast studio for a talk about industrial symbiosis, local triple helix collaboration, and how the municipality works with EU funding. I managed to get Erik Eklund, development consultant in the Municipality of Umeå, in for a conversation to unfold this case. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today we're going to Sweden. We go many places in this podcast around Europe, but we're going to, in this episode, we're going to have a practical example of what and how you can use EU funding. And we're going to a place called Umeå, and I have Erik on board. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Niels. Yeah.
Welcome in. And so this is one of the many examples of me picking up guests on LinkedIn. Yeah, because this is where the flow is, where I find inspiring posts and so on. It was exactly a post about EU funding for the local community. So, but before we step into and share what we're going to talk about today with the listeners, can you shortly introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much for participating today. My name is Erik Eklund. I work as a strategic development officer at the Municipality of Umeå. I have a background in energy engineering. I studied at Umeå University in engineering, and since then I've been working 15 years with energy and climate questions in the public sectors. And I also been working the last couple of years with the EU program financing and also working with project management as well. So it's been part of I've been involved in external funded projects for many, many years, I would say, but mostly focused on climate and energy issues. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long have you been with Umeå?
With Umeå, I have been almost 15 years, I would say. After my graduation as an energy engineer, I worked as an energy advisor for the citizens of Umeå and for different organizations. And after that, I started to work more with development projects. I was working with the NPA, for example, but also other EU-funded projects as well, until I got today. So I've been in the organization for a very, very long time, I would say.
Mm-hmm. All right, but that has a big quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, today we're going to have a talk about how you work with EU funding in the municipality and in the local community, in the interaction between your industry, local industry, and the rest of the community, and how you can use the industrial basis of a local community, giving synergies and symbiosis with the rest of the communities. That's what we're going to talk about, because the Commission funds a lot of these things. So this is a very nice example of that. Anything else here in a short fly-in on? Is there anything you can say in 2 lines, or so to say, in relation to Umeå and EU funding?
I would say Umeå has been working for many years with EU funding. It's been a core strategy of our work regarding development questions, both in climate but also in city development, for example.
Mm-hmm. And just to get the geography perfectly right, so where is Umeå exactly situated in Sweden?
Yeah, Umeå is situated in the northern part of Sweden. It's in the county of Västerbotten. So it's the second most northern county in Sweden. It has a population of around 135,000 inhabitants, and yeah.
And to listeners who are ignorant to this or doesn't know, Sweden is a fairly big country. But because Sweden is a little bit out of on the rim, we are that in the Scandinavia, right? We're a little bit on the outskirts of Europe. People are actually not aware of the distances. And what I can tell you is that part of the Nordic countries here, as soon as you get up there, both in Sweden and Norway and Finland, distances are vast.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of wood. You have a lot of forests.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's you would know same distances probably and get the same feel in some of the more rural parts of, I don't know, Ukraine, Poland. There's a lot of distance between each house.
It is. And Sweden is, as you say, Sweden is a very long country. I mean, it's almost 1,300 kilometers. So you lay it and switch it upside down, you get something in the south of Europe, So it's kind of a big country in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the part of Sweden that has always been Sweden. So I'm a historian. So it's also Heartland, Sweden. No.
Yeah.
Erik, let's look a little bit at the background. So this is what I always try to do when I present cases.
Mm-hmm.
So the background of the community's approach to EU funding. So can you open that up a little bit?
Sure, absolutely, Niels. Background on EU funding, we have been, I should start maybe back in 2014, we had been, or before that, Umeå applied for being capital of culture, and we also received being capital of culture in 2014. And I think that was a major milestone for the Umeå being positioned on the EU arena and for EU fundings, So that is, and also then how we actually could have built upon that with more and more EU projects as well. So one core strategy that we have been using in Umeå is actually being good to position our work, to position our interest in different networks and different areas of the EU system, I would say. So that is some of a background of how we are working. If that is what you're
yeah. And this is matter because I know a little bit about how municipalities they work. So in this respect to EU funding, because often if you don't have a strategy or some managers in the municipal system that says we need to have a strategy with EU funding, we need to learn how to do this, then you don't. So many municipalities, they really don't like EU funding because they don't like the different rules, they don't like the different way of doing budgets or reporting and so on. But the ones that do have a strategy with this, then as soon as you're into it, then it's much easier for you to handle. So that's what I'm fishing after here. So when that started and when you, or not started, but when you sort of got the hang of it, so if there's been a strategy also historically where you realized at some point of time, maybe we should focus a little bit on see if we can attract external EU funding for core areas of what we want to do in the municipality.
Exactly, and one way, at least formal strategy that my colleagues have was to work on an EU level instead of a national level, because we see also more opportunities on the EU level to get contacts, to get EU funding, for example, and getting contacts in different networks. And I think that the reason why we didn't get the same response on a national level, so then we went to the EU level and get a better response, better contacts, and could also start more projects. And that enhance also provide or put Umeå on the map later on, also on the national level, because we have been successful in also getting funding for different projects. For example, we have been part of large Horizon projects, and maybe one of the only Swedish cities that was a lighthouse city, for example, in a Horizon project. So that is some achievements that Umeå has achieved due to the way we are working with EU funding and strategies. And I would say it's a lot about positioning Umeå, and hence it's the hen or the egg. You have to be out there and be out working. Again, in this context, that also opens up opportunities for us. So if we're going back today, where I work now, we have a small team with people like me, strategic development officers, working with actually on a strategic level to see where can we leverage EU funding, in which core areas should we focus, in which networks should we be working more closely, or should we also be positioning ourselves in some sort of conferences. And also we have this thinking in mind, where should our politicians go as well. So if there's a big conference here, we get invitation, we may also take our major with us, so they can also talk about Umeå. So that is how we are working as well.
Yeah. So do you know if when there was a shift, time? Do you know when Umeå started to focus more on this, 2010 or 2005, or do you know when you got more focused on EU funding? It doesn't matter if you don't.
I don't know exactly the date, but the year. But I think one milestone was actually Umeå becoming capital of culture.
Okay, so middle of the tens.
Yeah, exactly. At least then I was some sort of part of it, but before that I'm not quite sure what happened. But of course, and also after that, the capital of culture, we have also applied for this green capital a couple of times. We didn't receive the green capital, but we were runner-up and the second place. But that had also provided us good positioning within the environmental and climate work as well in Umeå, I would say.
Now, we're going to talk about strategy in a little bit of a second, so we're not going to talk too much about that in this sort of background approach. But so I'm going to wait a little bit with the how you work with. But how is it? So the motivation. Is it a what do you say? Is it an enlightened approach in the municipality that EU funding is good and that it supports your different strategies where you can use funding? So is it something that the motivation for EU funding, is it something that on the political level as well as manager level in the organization of the employees, it's an enlightened, it's understanding that EU funding is something that can help different corners?
I would say yes and no to that question. I mean, the municipal organization has 13,000 employees. It's a very big organization, But in that part I'm working on with the city management, I would say it's a high enlightenment in EU funding, and also the managers, the closest managers and directors I am working with, and our team is working with, they have they see the potential with EU funding, not only the money received to doing development work within the city, but also the opportunity for the people working there to learn from other cities, to get more experience, and also make Umeå an attractive employer. So it's all connected, to work, also being able to work internationally within a municipality, for example. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
My name is Merete Mikkelsen, and I think you should really listen to the grant to get new ideas, hear solutions for other people, and get going with your projects. Good luck.
Let's move on to talk a little bit about strategy. And here we're going to talk about, because what we're going to circle around in this episode, that's the connection between the industry and the way the municipality works for the rest of the community. Yeah. So first, have you made a funding strategy in the municipality? Do you have such a document?
I don't know if it's a core funding strategy, but we have a document where we have a mission or tasks for this team that working with strategic financing and funding. So
Yep.
I wouldn't say that it's not a strategy, but a document for us to work against those.
Yeah. Because this is, of course, when you start to have a team that work with these things, it starts to get, then it starts to, as an organization and working with it, then you have some goals, you have some approaches and so on. So have you defined some, have you had internal considerations on how to work effectively with funding? Is it something where you in your team, for instance?
Yeah, sure. We are a team of, I think in this team, around 10 persons working with different expertise areas. And we are meeting, for example, every week, but also a long meeting to discuss, okay, what are the core priorities for the next year, for example, and what conferences or programs or calls are upcoming to see how can that fit into the Umeå way of thinking at the moment.
Yeah. So sort of, have you developed sort of an annual wheel?
Yeah, you can say so. Something like that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but that's quite normal way of working with it at that level. I've been doing that myself when I was working for municipality. So it's the sort of that you sort of have an overview of what's coming. How many are you in the team?
I would say that the team consists of different departments from a couple of persons from the department where I work on strategic development office. We also have from the business part, we have from the IT department and a different cultural department as well. So all them in total, I think we are around 15 people, I would say.
Yeah. Now, I'm always interested in hearing about, and that goes for any organization, industry, NGO, whatever, how the strategy of the organization is calibrated with the road to funding, so to say. So you have a strategy. So you have a strategy probably for the organization itself. That's why you're in the strategic department.
Yeah.
So how what I'm fishing after here is how active the EU, how big a part the EU funding is in say we have the strategy of the organization. Here we have development. Here we have collaboration with industry. Here we have international collaboration. Okay. Here's what we can do in the municipality. And then for some of these blocks, we can use funding. How do you do that? Have you mapped it and say, look, here we have, this is what we need to do this is what the political board has decided. This is where we need to go. This is my tasks on my desk as a strategic consultant in the municipality. And then I need to, you in your corner, you sit and find out and map. So where does it make sense to use funding? Is that how it doesn't make sense? Is it?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think that is quite the way we are working.
Okay,
but
how do you work?
more or less, we have let's say the politicians have adopted like 4 directional goals for the whole municipality. One is about growth, and one is about climate neutrality and social sustainability, etc. And what we try to do is actually to get funding and development projects in line with those goals, And if we then zoom into, for example, the area where I work in climate and climate neutrality, there we have decided on a couple of core strategic directions where we should focus on, and there we also try to get funding into those areas, core areas as well. And there in these core areas, we also work with not only in the municipality, but also with external stakeholders, of course, as well. So that is something I would say has built up since we been part of the mission of 100 climate neutral cities. It's been us to be more focused, more strategic in how we actually can can use EU funding and where we should focus our strategies, if it makes sense,
Yeah. So you use that project
Yeah.
as a leverage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we're slowly moving into what maybe I don't know if my listeners sometimes get annoyed that I have such a long fly in. It's just to make sure that that I paint the picture and get the right frame, because I want to move towards so the way you work with your local industry.
I see.
How is that a big part of the work you do in the strategic office you're sitting?
Yeah, it is. I would say a rather big part of the work we are doing, especially within the climate issues. Yeah.
Okay, explain a little bit about when did you start to be more aware of this, and how have you worked with it until now with your local industry?
We have been one example has been going on since 2020. I would say we have been working with develop something called the Umeå Climate Roadmap, and the Umeå Climate Roadmap, it is a partnership and it's also a framework. And the framework is about aligning with the city's overarching goals, being climate neutrality, and also focusing on different core areas, but also the partnerships. We have around 65 different companies in this partnership working together to tackle climate change in Umeå, for example. And those partners could be Volvo, it is ABB, it's SA, so it's also global players part of this and industry players. And that is, I would say, a core foundation for us to collaboration in this field.
Yeah. And so is it like, do you have a structure? Do you have sort of a forum where you meet with them to invite them into to regular meetings? Do you have sort of a roadmap to develop together with them on how your synergies and collaboration should be, and how does it work?
Exactly, you're spot on there. We have
and I didn't even check your website.
We have a roadmap or a framework, that we collaborate against, and also an annual wheel. We have different setup meetings and different organizations within the climate roadmap. We have, for example, a strategic group that is part of developing the partnership. We had also focus groups. One is focused more kind of towards energy, more focus on transportation, and focus on industry, for example. So that's how it is.
Yeah. Now, anyone that has been working with industry knows that needs to be some. It's not. They don't do anything for the sake of the blue eyes. It's business. It's business, yeah. So, what was the motivation for? How did you get them on board this?
That's a very, very good question. I think one of my colleagues have been working for many, many years in having dialogues with the stakeholders and also getting them on board the climate work. We see that these companies are somewhat front runners. They want to do good. They want to reduce their emissions. They have their business strategies as well. So maybe it's about finding the right ones, aligning with the municipality wants to do, and they also want to contribute to the local society as well. So I think it's a combination of those two to get them on board. But as you mentioned, we can come into that more a little bit later, but it is a network, a partnership where we work together, at least try to work together. But as you mentioned, you need to find, it needs also, because this industry also need to have businesses as well. So how can we actually drive green growth and green transition in this sense? Yeah.
I think any CSR profit would say, but that's because when they look like good companies, they look also like a good place to work, so they attract the good labor. They by the image, they will also be able to make their profile look nicer and branding look nice and so on and so forth. There's probably a lot of it here, but I think there's much more to it than this. Now let's just move into the next block on talking exactly about this, because now we've been hovering around how you work with this in municipality and funding and the strategy and so on. But let's get at the main part here about the Industrial Symbiosis Initiative.
Sure.
Because that's the eco-industrial park, the concept and how it works and so on. Let's fold that out and have a good conversation about that. So hit me.
Yeah. So the Umeå Eco Industrial Park is actually a park today, not a park, but it's an area Umeå want to develop towards being an industrial park where industrial symbiosis is the way of working. So basically what it means is the one company's byproducts get the other companies' raw material into their processes, for example. So we are now trying to shape a center for green innovation in this Umeå Eco Industrial Park, and it's an area of about 550 hectares that we want to exploit. And today there are some businesses there. For example, the combined heat and power plants are located there, producing heat and also electricity for Umeå. It's producing almost all the heat is needed in Umeå today. And also we have other recycling companies there on the ground as well. So we have a good foundation to build upon that. And we see a lot of also waste is coming into this Umeå Industrial Park today. And how can we actually utilize it better instead of incineration everything? How can we actually make new products, make new resources out of it? So that is the core plan, I would say.
It's a classical circular economy.
Exactly.
And industrial. So this industrial symbiosis has become a concept, so to say. And I actually think that Kalundborg in Denmark has played a key role in both conceptualizing but also showing what can be done, because they start early. That's the area where you have Novo Nordisk, which most people would know, because now you can buy medicine that can make you drop all your fat. That's why most people now know them, but they're actually known for making diabetes medicine. That's worldwide, and most people know it also. Now, in the area where they have this industrial symbiosis concept development. That's 10, 15 years ago they started. So
interesting.
It's old. And it sort of spread. So the EU Commission picked it up, and they put sort of in the framework program for research and innovation, right? They started to put in the circular economy calls things that could develop further on this kind of idea of you have different businesses in a region, and then one business waste can become another business raw material, right? Which is exactly that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, how many companies have you in the eco-industrial park? How many are involved in the initiative?
I think there are on the spot now. I think it's around 10 companies, but it is evolving quickly, and we're looking into now. For example, a company called Liquid Wind will probably establish their site or industry factory there. What they want to do and will do in the future.
I know them.
You know them, yeah. They will produce e-methanol for the shipping industry, for example. Yeah, and taking the CO2 from the CHP plant, for example. And then they're also ongoing. Monocombustions of sewage sludge, for example, taking it into this area and monocombust it to also be able to reduce the emission, but also recycling phosphorus and heavy metals from the sewage sludge, for example. And also what we are doing now, and if we're looking a little bit further ahead, they also want to look into producing sustainable aviation fuel on the site as well, because so that is something maybe in the coming years. So they have a collaboration with Mana, a Norwegian company, to produce sustainable aviation fuel. So that is I would say it's in the pipeline for the Umeå Eco Industrial Park at the moment. But these are the companies or the industries who want to start working there or exploiting the area. We are also having ideas of want to build up a resource hub, or like I would say not a campus area, but also we want to do innovation around this, and also have using this as a test bed and try out new things. So we want to attract research there as well to see how we can learn and also conduct new research and new products out of it. So yeah,
it's excellent. Now, what we need to talk about here is the EU funding around this. So, was the EU funding initiating it, or did you already establish it, and then you are applying for funding for initiatives in different corners of the eco-industrial park, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think I wasn't part, but I think the Umeå Eco-Industrial Park was not derived from EU funding, if I understand correctly. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it started, but since I've been involved in that work, we have been using it to drive the work there with different types of EU funding. For example, we have got funding from the ERUF or ERDF program, Regional Development Program, to do work. We have also now received funding from Horizon, or Enabling Cities Transformation, to also do work around the Umeå Eco-Industrial Park, but also taking the work there and also finding the synergies and see how can we actually apply or enable industrial symbiosis, not only on the Umeå Eco-Industrial Park, but in other parts of the city as well, for example. So, yeah.
Yeah, and can you share a little bit what kind of funding? So you mentioned the funding sources, but what do they fund? So the Horizon project, for instance, what is that funding?
That specific Horizon project called the name of the project is Hydrosym. It's a collaboration project between Helsingborg and the city of Umeå, and both those cities are mission cities within the climate neutral 100 mission cities, and they fund an net zero accelerator framework for the industry. So what we are starting to develop is some sort of a framework where we work with roadmaps, one roadmaps, technical roadmaps, and one transition roadmaps, how to actually, and the goal here is actually to speed up the transition towards climate neutrality within the industry. So that is the main goal with this framework, and how we can organize around it. But one goal of the project, or objective of the project, is to have one investable project at the end, that the framework will lead to one investable project in the end. So that's yeah.
But that you have, I can easily imagine that for a proposal like that, because you have so many things going on, it's just to frame which one you should choose, so to say, of the investable projects, right?
Yeah, of course. And here we are working very closely with the local utility company called Umeå Energy, and this specific Hydrosym is focusing on industrial symbiosis and waste and residual heat. Because if all these plants in Umeå Eco-Industrial Park fall out, we will have a lot of residual heat left. Is so much heat that we have to do something about it, because and we're looking into how can we use that heat to maybe grow vegetables in northern Sweden, for example, or can we use the heat in the city to heat buildings in the city, for example. So looking into different options, and that is what I would say Hydrosym is about, to find how can we actually increase the speed of using waste heat in the city in a different way. Yeah.
Now we've been talking a little bit about the inter-industry symbiosis. Now, what I want to also focus a little bit on is how, and you already mentioned that now, how the municipality, so the city, the residential part, the where people live, so to say, and how that is taken advantage. So is there any part of what you do related to heating of public buildings or of residential, or are there any other elements of what you do where there's an interaction between the industry side and the municipality, the rest of it?
good question. I'm not quite sure if I understand a connection between the industry and the municipality, and not what I would say in the building side yet, because we have, just for your understanding, we have a well built district heat network within Umeå. So what we do in a large scale, we take, for example, heat from one of our paper industries in Umeå, excess heat, and take it to one place and use heat pumps to increase the temperature and put it out on the district heating system, for example. So we, in that sense, it's connected. Yeah. I would say.
But that's what I meant, because that's in communities like yours, it's easier to test these things out.
Yeah,
it's not Paris or Madrid.
Yeah,
it's also, you don't have that amount of industry, heavy industry. You have industry, but it's not like the Ruhrdistrict in Germany, or it's easier to work and test new things out.
Yeah.
Any other? So the European the ERDF project. What did that fund?
That are funding the different, I would say, core areas within the Umeå Eco-Industrial Park. For example, it's a starting point for developing, I would say, the recycling water, for example, is one part of developing how we can work with waste heat as well in that project, and on the local area, on the local site, and also looking into, I would say, how we can work with, for example, innovation and research as well, to start building some sort of a center of excellence around industrial symbiosis in Umeå. So that is one, I would say, 3 core areas, but there's a couple of more as well, water and also waste into the equation as well. Yeah, and one part they are actually being decided in the Umeå Eco-Industrial Park. It will be built by the utility companies, post-sorting facility. So all the waste is coming into the area will be sorted before it's been incinerated. So then you can sort out, I think it's up to 7 different fractions. And now you want to see, okay, how can we use this to for new materials or new products, for example.
Yeah. So how many international partners are you working with in the projects that you've been involved in? You said you have another Swedish city there, but do you have international partners involved in the projects that you're working?
I don't know, not what I'm aware about at the moment. We are actually now, this Horizon project that we are rolling now was the call from the Net Zero Cities, so they were hosting the call, so to speak, and we didn't go internationally because we see that we have a lot of commonalities between Helsingborg and Umeå, and we apply together and guide it, And now, actually, as we speak, we're also looking into another call that is open now. It's a Horizon call, a little bit of a bigger budget, a longer term, that is focusing on industry and circularity. So we're actually trying to get now another Horizon call focusing on Umeå Eco-Industrial Park, and there we will be working with a lot of different international players. Yeah.
Now, this is a very, very good example. Thanks, and I'm happy I asked this question. But it's very important, because this is a matter of building up internal capacity and self-confidence that you can step into a big project with international partners. And this is something that all municipalities that I have worked with and facilitated for, there's an issue with this internationalization. We have to speak English.
Yeah.
I have to work with French and Bulgarian and Cypriotic partners, or there's a lot of anxiety and insecurity around with many individual clerks, civil servant in municipalities when they are presented with this. With this scenario. Yeah. So what I always used to say when I was supporting and facilitating was, okay, let's start a different place, or let's try to start a different place than where you build up capacity on how it is to work in a public funded project, and then we see how that works, both how to prepare the proposal and actually implement what is being, so we both know the proposal part and we know how to implement with budget and reporting and so on and so forth. What's a work package and how do you roll things out and so on. And how do you work with external partners that you have there? Like how is the industry, the local partners? Are they resistant to do something like this? Are they difficult to work with, or is it smooth and so on? And then when you have that experience, okay, here we know it's difficult, but now we know how to handle it, and we have the knowledge internally on how to. Then we take a step further.
As you say, it's actually about building internal capacity, I would say, to make us ready to take the step to the international area. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Which and here and now if we can zoom in on the funding side, do you have, now you're in the strategy and you said you're in your team, so you have people sitting in different corners that are related to strategy, but they sit in different departments of the municipalities. But do you have capacities in the municipality that knows how to write a work package for an EU proposal, that knows about the budget for an EU project, or do you have that internal capacity? Is that you?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I have done a lot of proposal writing in my years, so I'm kind of used to it. And also we have a lot of colleagues, or not a lot of, but some colleagues on my department that are also hired to develop proposals. So they are some sort of an expert how to structure projects in EU projects, but also national projects. So they're quite far advanced, I would say. But also during the former projects, for example, as you mentioned, I mentioned the Ruggedize project as a Horizon project, and also other ongoing or former international projects. We also have built capacity within the municipal group, the municipal companies. So we have a good connection and good collaboration with them as well. So they know if they are asked to join, they know what expected of them, for example. So it's much easier for collaboration.
Because this is exactly what is putting a break often and puts an initiative or an invitation to a project into the ditch. That is an invitation to a project, and then you maybe have one or two persons that knows what it's about, but they need to check with other parts of the municipality, because they need to be involved in the content side. And then comes the fear and the not knowing what this is about, and say, oh no. So this is very, very important.
And there, I think there you have to build the capacity and also working with I mean, it's a matter of time, I think when we get proposals, they need to go quite quickly. You don't have much time to develop those. And I think you should be a little bit more proactive also with the different departments within the municipality. And actually, we are now trying to do that with our team, with development officers, to actually work more closely with the different departments, be there and listening to their needs, and see how can we actually, based on their needs, can we see also how can we get funding to help them in their development questions, for example. So that is something we try testing out now as well. Yeah.
It sounds like you're a little bit slowly stepping in onto the ice.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like now you have been doing this, and you've been doing it for some years now, so you have some knowledge internally. But then it's exactly the next steps are that exactly is that you spread the knowledge. But maybe also you already done that, having maybe taking some trainings. Or maybe you've been thinking that would be a good idea to have trainings on how to do an EU project for more employees. I don't know. Things like this starts to happen when you engage yourself often in a municipality, when you have people driving it forward, and then it starts to move to a higher level of knowledge and understanding of how these things have been done.
Exactly. Yeah.
But are you doing trainings?
I will not say trainings. I would more say we're in the early stages of this, just listening and also telling them about our task, our missions, what we do in strategic development office regarding funding and applying for funding, and also see how we can help them. And they of course want to do interesting projects and want to develop their departments in different ways, their businesses. So how actually can we help each other in that sense? And of course, we are not that many, we cannot help them do everything, but at least we can provide them with context, provide them with networks, help them get on board, and also support them through different processes. But there, I think it's an opportunity, I would say, to work on that level and see how we actually can leverage on in the wider part.
Yeah. So it's more awareness raising and learning how people work and share how it can be put into this kind of context.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you use your EU office?
Yeah, we have a
North Sweden EU office.
Yeah, we use them a little bit. I don't use them that much, but I know some colleagues do, and we have one guy was actually up to Umeå for a meeting to present what they are doing and how they can help us as well. So I have some context there definitely, but I don't know how we can maybe leverage them more. But I don't know. But
what I can say.
Yeah.
What I can say now, it also becomes now I can share a little bit about. So it's on air. This is not consultancy, but it's on air. Like facilitating. So what I can tell you is that I actually know the people from the office. I used to know some of the old employees because I've been in the ecosystem myself in Brussels, and they can put you in contact with people. Mm-hmm. So when you get into a place where you would need more international partners, that's normally something that the Swedish offices, they do. And what they also do, as far as I remember, is that you can get them to maybe make a call screen. Screening for opportunities. They also often work on the policy side for their local regions. So that's a different game, right? That's not funding, but definitely Sweden have got these offices. So I always recommend my listeners, if you live in a country that has an EU office that works with funding, connect with them, and then they might not be able to help you right now, but so that I can definitely recommend. No, that was
that's good.
Anyway, so now looking at concrete results from the projects, do you already now have, from the funded projects that you have been rolling, do you have concrete results that can be seen, tangible, like for the companies and for the municipality?
If I'm talking about this project HydroSim, I would say no, not yet. It's been running for 3 months only, so it's
okay, of course,
it's a quite short time. And this other one is quite new as well. It's been running maybe a half a year, so I would say not any tangible results yet, but soon to come. I would say we have some. I don't know if it could call it tangible, but at least working with developing plans, more detailed plans for the area, where to build roads and infrastructure and so on. So they're coming a little bit more tangible. But that has been ongoing, but the project has leveraged this and built in more. Let's see how actually can we enable this industrial symbiosis, and how do we think in the planning stage as well. So they've been involved in that sense as well. Yeah.
All right. I was just curious.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I don't think I have more questions on this. Is there anything else that you didn't share about the industrial symbiosis?
Probably a lot. But we
from a funding
funding perspective, what
do you have anything in pipeline? Are there things where you say,
I actually, one of my colleagues that is more working a lot with this Umeå Industrial Park has actually developed a portfolio of projects, so we can actually look into this is ongoing, these are sent in for or applications that are sent in and are probably being received, and also we have some new upcoming ideas. So it's like 3 steps where different projects are in what phases they are. So it's like a timeline or a portfolio approach towards the Umeå Industrial Park. At least we're trying to go there and working a portfolio-based approach, I would say.
Yeah. Now, I've put it dotted here in the rundown a case, enabling city transformation project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have we talked about that?
Yeah, that is actually the hydrogen project that I mentioned. So it's it was a call that was sent out through Net Zero Cities during this autumn. So it's a kind of a short project. It's 18 months only. We get up to 10 million Swedish or crowns to doing this, and we're collaborating with Helsingborg, as I mentioned. So it's a kind of short-term project, but it's not. I would say it's about enabling how we can actually get the whole city on board easily. For example, taking this now industrial symbiosis, how can you actually work together with stakeholders in new ways to speed up the transition, I would say, to test new ways in that sense. And I know other cities and that also working in this goal, they are focusing more on internal capacity, how to build new knowledge and internal capacity to transition the whole city or the whole city approach.
All right. So this is where you were doing the road mapping.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Which is important because it's big things that we need to do.
Yeah.
So this kind of making sure that we project things correctly to move towards this. That's of course a big task.
Hello, my name is Chiara Liguori. I've been listening to the podcast for half a year, but I invite you all to listen to it as well.
No, Erik, let's move on to the next block. We are slowly moving towards the end.
Yeah.
Lessons and reflections. Key lessons in building municipal industry collaboration through EU projects. What did you said that? So what do you have on your no blog?
Key lessons from municipality.
But you can also just leave out the lessons. So the key lessons in general with working with EU funding in the team in the municipality.
Yeah, I would say one lesson for us working as a team, I would say, is about positioning, how we position ourselves. You know, how we can actually, just an example, how we've been working within the mission for 100 climate and neutral cities. We send in an expression of interest to see, okay, we want to be a part of this. We know we are quite advanced in this area, and we also want to show that and want to contribute to the mission. And after 1 year being part of the mission, we also said, okay, let's make a conference in Umeå about this. So we invited people from EU and from old Sweden to come to Umeå to show what we are doing and also discuss together how we can develop the mission. So basically, on that conference, Umeå and some cities in Spain, they also have a national network, same as in Sweden. We develop a declaration or development declaration that was sent to the EU commissions to see, okay, this is how we would like the EU mission to evolve or to develop, for example. So we've been working on that sense. So I think how we position Umeå in different ways is a key learnings, and that also make us, because they people on Umeå, we can collaborate with them. We get a lot of questions to join in proposals, for example, and so on. So that is one example of one approach. Other when working with municipal industry and collaboration, as I mentioned, I think in at least what I know in Umeå, we have a very good common understanding in collaboration. We are good in collaboration in Umeå, I would say. It's not at a big city. It's kind of a medium-sized city. It's easy to get in contact, and people and companies and people are, I would say, No, they are, I would say, good at collaboration as well. So being able to do that, and also then next step working with EU funding has been, I think, a good foundation to build upon. And looking back to this Umeå climate roadmap, how we develop this, and actually how we get partners or different companies and organizations together, both from the academia and from the industry, in discussing the municipality objectives being climate neutrality, and see how they can contribute. A lot of opportunities arise, and then we can also talk to different stakeholders there and partners, see how we can work together in different EU projects, for example. So that could be a foundation to actually take it further.
Yeah. Well done. So do you work together with your local universities?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Actually, I'm also employed by the university, Umeå University. So I have a 10% there, basically for doing a few lectures, but also for collaboration between the university and the municipality regarding projects, regarding funding, for example, because they have the idea or interest to see how can we help the municipality with their targets and their to be in climate neutrality, for example, and see how can we work together to both they can do research, and the research should also help us within the city, I would say. So that is why I also employ 10% there to exchange this and have a good dialogue with them and discussion on building projects.
It's important information there, Erik.
Yeah. It's coming in the end.
Could have had that. I'm happy I've squeezed it out of you in the end here.
Yeah.
No, because it's important when you have this intersection between industry and municipality, and then you also have the university, the research side, because it also makes you an intersection of understanding the three sides, so to say, in that triangle. So having the symbiosis, so that's you need to play together with the municipality, but also need research in the third corner and so on. So it's okay. Are you? Is that something that you use in this forum you have with the companies?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
And
is the university also an official part of that forum?
Sure. Yeah.
Who's part of that forum? So you have the industries?
Yeah, industry,
companies
and academia and the research institute and public organizations. So it's, I would say, triple helix.
So you have the municipality, but do you also have other public organizations?
Yeah, like the region of Västerbotten is a public authority handling the hospital, for example.
Yeah. And the decision that on the things and initiatives that you take in there, what's the target of that? Is that so? Do you decide collaborations, or do you in that forum what drives it forward?
That's a good question. I would say in the background is the municipality who facilitates it, who is running it behind the scenes, who is organizing everything, and that is funded by external funding, from national side, funded by the viable cities to develop this collaborations in the city.
Okay. Do you have working groups or different core corners that you are discussing, or how does it work?
Yeah. So it's organized in different core areas. For example, transport and mobility. There are a couple of partners, both from the industry and from the academia, working together on specific actions there, for example. And we could have another area in industrial symbiosis, for example, working on that area as well.
Okay. And there you also talk about external funding for different corners.
Yeah, I think that is I don't know how far we come with this, but I think that is we have a good foundation to build upon using external funding. But we have tried in some cases working with external funding, but you don't always succeed with the applications, but at least we try.
Well, that's the good old song, it's how you perceive proposals, because on success rates. So the thing is, it's not lost knowledge, and it's not lost efforts, not at least if you actively use the proposal process afterwards, even though you don't get the funding.
Exactly.
So using the connections you made, the discussions you made, the realizations you made on bilateral collaboration then, or making other ways of collaboration, that's always how you should perceive proposals, because then it's just hardcore wasted work if you don't, because
you can always build upon it, and the proposal could also fit in some other call, or you can, as you mentioned, you can have a good collaborations. You get to, maybe that could be something else in the future. So it's never waste of time, I would say, going into a call like this. Yeah.
I think that's almost it. Do you have any reflections on like using EU funding strategically for local impact?
I was more strategically, but as I mentioned in the beginning, we're trying to align the funding towards the municipality targets, of course. So that is one way of thinking. But we're trying also taking the next steps. Due to we are part of the EU missions, we are working with unpacking our climate city contract and develop a portfolio of actions, a portfolio of projects. And there, I think, at least we're very early in this stage, but my idea, my vision is to be more strategic there and to see what projects could we actually go for external or EU funding, what development projects can we go to EU, and also have it in a portfolio approach. I would say it will be interesting to see how they connect to other areas as well, and see how, and also build a narrative easily around the proposals and projects. So,
Do you have any recommendations?
I would say just I was once in a time, I never been part of an EU project, and the first time I was exactly as you mentioned, a little bit scared. What is this? How do I proceed? I need to speak English and everything. A lot of barriers, but at least try. You will learn a lot, and you will increase your capacity and knowledge. And I think it's very rewarding in that sense. It could be a little bit painful doing the reporting, of course, but you gain so much else out of this collaboration process, I would say. But one core is actually, I would say, is to, if you're going to do a successful project, but that's all projects, is to align it with your what you're doing today, so it doesn't go in the wrong direction, I would say. That's important.
No. Good, thanks. That's it. Now we have the toughest challenge. So now it's always different what I put in the toughest challenge, and I try not to make it too easy to simple. But so here I put the toughest challenge in securing strategic synergies from municipality using EU funding. So here in this question lies so the collaboration you have with your local industry. What is the toughest challenge in getting that folded out through the EU funded projects?
The toughest challenge, I would say, I think not commitment, but I think people are very interested. But it's about resources and time, I would say, the toughest challenge. I would say that. I think the people want to be part of it, and they see maybe the potential and opportunities, but it's very important it will be aligned with their way of thinking, their businesses as well, and also that they have the time and resources. And for I think that is the core issue, and that is also the issue we see internally, to having the resources also to involved in this type of projects.
I've seen this a lot. So both the company capacities that are supposed to deal with this, both in the proposal phase and the implementation, but also in municipalities, also both phases. Like this capacity thing and resource things that I don't have the time to, or like
exactly.
But I guess it's a management thing, right?
Yeah.
So if management understands the importance, or have an understanding for what this is, and then if management say, "Well, what's this?" I have to deal with that EU project again. It drives me crazy, Then there's not a lot of motivation from the person that is dealing with it. But if they say, okay, this is strategically important for us, yes. If you can't work in this setting, go home and work from home, because if you need the piece, so on and so forth, because we need this money. It's very important, Then it shifts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're true. It's true. It's about one part is management, definitely. So, yeah.
Erik, we're done.
Yeah.
Now I just have to land the plane, as I always do, before we say goodbye to dear listeners. So, dear listeners, thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, this nice conversation. If you liked this and it's the first time you listen, I have a big treat for you. You can go to my platform, thegrant.eu, and you will there find around 180 podcast episodes. They're not all on municipalities and industrial symbiosis, but you will find a good handful of podcast episodes with focus on municipalities and how they work with EU funding. So go in there, and when you are there, don't hesitate. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list. This is how you support a humble, independent podcaster like myself. So please, thanks in advance for that. Finally, go connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where the fun happens. That's where the flow is. So Niels Tudor Winther on LinkedIn, and go like my The Grant page. So I this is where I like stuff. This is where I share stuff. This is where I put up my flow of marketing for the weekly episode, and so on and so forth. So there, and it's also where I pick up my guests like Erik here.
Yeah.
Now, Erik, thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been
a
pleasure.
Nice conversation, and so good to think about how you actually are doing, as a way of also for me to process. Okay, I got some ideas also from this discussion as well. To take further.
Many of my guests say this.
Yeah,
that they have to reflect on this. It actually opens up, things they haven't thought about before.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You usually don't have time to do this type of reflections. You actually go on full speed ahead. But to have this way of thinking, I think I can take this back to my colleagues and work. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. Now let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye. You also need to say bye.
Yeah, bye. Goodbye. Yeah.
Don't worry, I will cut that out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You will find the link in the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Erik's personal LinkedIn site and to Umeå Municipality. Further, there will be a link to the Industrial Symbiosis initiative. Next week, it is time for another episode in my short format, The Grant Shorts. This is the third episode in my research management short series that I do together with Stephanie Harfensteller. And this time we have a look at the importance of networking. You can indeed look forward to that.